Have you ever wanted to play a Pokemon game that leaves you stranded on an island where you have to survive with the help of other Pokemon and craft your very own resources and equipment? Well, look no further than Pokemon Stranded, a ROM hack that Nintendo recently nuked off of Pokemon Community. But I still managed to play it, and today we're going to go over the entire story of how I survived being alone in a cluster of islands. You start off in Pallet Town, which I personally thought was very weird. I thought I was going to start out on a raft and just be floating at sea somewhere. But this story starts very different, as Team Rocket has taken over your little town just on the day you were supposed to get your first Pokemon. So we head over to the lab and try to interfere with a grunt, but he isn't having any of it and teleports me away to a faraway place with his Drowsy, leaving us stranded at a beach with just a Nidorino, Slowbro, and a couple of palm trees in our vicinity. We quickly get our very first boss fight in the game against a tree. Fight. You're able to take this down with an axe if you manage to craft one with a Pokemon or by just using your bare hands. Since we don't have a Pokemon or an axe, we're going to be knocking this tree out with our fists. We also pull down some vines from a tree, which we might need to make some extra materials later. Further up, I enter a nearby cave and we see a Jigglypuff here that can make cream puffs if you have a Pokemon in your party, which once again, we don't. A Chansey that will definitely work as a Pokemon Center, and a Wigglytuff that will only do something if we heal at the Chansey. So I guess our very first objective is finding a Pokemon. Found the crafting menu, which you can open by using R on your keyboard, and there's a ton of stuff here. Hammers, pickaxes, tents, and so much more. But I decided to craft a rope and head back outside to pick some berries, which I then ultimately gave to the Nidorino on the beach, which gave him a burst of energy to dig through this wall and create a path for me. Inside this little cave, you can enter a pitfall which will lead you to a cave system. There's a ton of directions for me to go in, but first we end up running into a Kirlia that straight up ignores me. So I left it alone and went out the other way to reach a laboratory, meaning that there must have been a civilization of people here at some point, but it seems to be fully abandoned as the lights are out and everything seems to be a total mess. Here we find a couple of notes, and one of them is a list with a ton of things crossed out and the name Alita handwritten and circled out. We have obviously no idea what this means. We also became God by using a walk through walls glitch, but it only made me able to move in like 5 spaces. We also found some more notes that said that we're on the Sevi Islands apparently, but the group that was in this laboratory before us seems to be an evil group because the champion was after them and interfering with a ton of their plans. As it turns out, the group that lived here is named Purple Shirt. Probably the funniest evil team name I've ever heard. They did indeed plan to take over the Sevi Islands, but something must have happened because there's nobody here. We also found a computer that needs a password in order to unlock it, so I guess we're going to have to find that somewhere. I go to the basement where the light is totally on, but I can't progress any further because the developer says that this area leads to one of the endings. So once we've completed the entire story, we'll be able to come back here and see what this is all about. Just outside of the laboratory, I find the Easy Nav, which will allow me to use Surf, Rock Smash, Cut, and Strength. A super useful key item that will unlock every area for us. There's also a house down here, but it's getting blocked by a Psyduck who's looking for someone. I just wish we had the secret potion from Platinum to spray it in his face so that he would flee. So instead we head back to the cave to investigate some more and find a random Pokeball there with an Eevee in it, which will be our very first team member. There is also a note attached to it from the person that left it here saying that I need to take really good care of this. So let's just try our best. Another exit of that cave led me to a Haunter who can make a magical set of stairs appear if we give him a Leppa Berry, but he also has a trick up his sleeve, putting a bomb in his own mouth and letting it explode. We don't have a Leppa Berry right now, so we can't really progress through this side, so instead I went back to the cave and went down the other end, which led out to sea. After doing our very first session of swimming, we run into a school of tentacruels that are harassing a war turtle. So being the good Samaritan that I am, I decide to jump in 10. So with a few tail whips and a couple of tackles, the level 7 Tentacruel falls to my teeny tiny little fox, and the war turtle is super grateful. So grateful that a weird voice starts talking to me in my head, saying that I can come down to her palace because I saved one of her kin to get a nice reward. So we end up on the ocean floor where an entire civilization of Squirtles and war turtles live. Here we also meet a voice from my head, and it's a girl, but she has special powers that allow me to breathe underwater, and she can speak with all of the sea creatures too. She was raised by the ocean, but she used to be a regular human, but one day her ship crashed with her parents on it, killing both of them, but she was saved by this family of Squirtles. Ever since then, she's been living down here and making sure the ocean stays safe. She once again thanks me for saving her brother by giving me some sea spikes, which are basically nature's full heals, and she also evolves the war turtle that we just saved into a Blastoise because it wanted to join my team, needed to be stronger first. So that's our second team member acquired. Very nice. A level 10 Blastoise doesn't make much sense, but it'll make battles a lot easier. He sends us back to the surface, but we go down immediately after to check out that boat wreck that was behind her. This turns out to be her house where a lot of war turtle and Squirtles that have jobs reside. Here you can change your nickname from your Pokemon and even reset their EVs, as well as make evolutionary stones. That's not why we're here. We head back to Otohime because she's got a quest for us. The ocean is in danger because a Kingler has been raging rampant and attacking a ton of sea creatures, so we have to go and calm it down. An easy task for my Scalding Blastoise, and upon return we get more rewards, and since the ocean floor is now totally peaceful, we can leave and explore some more of the mainland. If you're ever stranded on an island somewhere and need some good sleep, don't look any further than the sponsor of this video, Manta Sleep. They have the world's best sleep masks. They make sure you're 100% in the dark, so no light comes through the cracks and ruins your perfect sleep. And it does that without zero pressure on your eyelids or eyelashes, meaning that it's super comfortable. It doesn't matter if you have a big or a small head, you can adjust it any way you like, and they even have different variants. For the summer you can use the Manta Cool Mask to make sure that pesky heat doesn't ruin your sleep. In the winter you can use a steam mask that will keep your eyes warm and soft. You have a ton of other variants, but I personally went with the Manta Sleep Mask Pro, which has better materials than the regular mask, as well as C-shaped eye cups that will make sure you're even more comfortable. So if you want to join me for a nice little nap, make sure to visit the Manta Sleep website, and if you decide to buy any product, make sure to use my link in the description or pinned comment and use code ZWIGGO at checkout for 10% off of your order. Once again, a huge thank you to Manta Sleep for sponsoring this video. For now, let's get back to our island adventure. Here we find a Kingler that's chilling on the beach and catching fish with its large claws. It needs some help with taking down Magikarps, which we help him with, and as a reward we get some raw Magikarp, which we can cook up and then give to our Pokemon to replenish some health. We go back to the cave at the beginning to talk to the Jigglypuff over there and make a ton of cream puffs with our Pokemon, which we can use to increase their special defense EVs all the way to the max if we want, because this is free and you can get as many as you want. We then heal up our Pokemon at the Chansey. The Wigglytuff opens up a ladder which leads into another cave system. Here we found some more notes that somebody left behind, saying that he's been running from the cops and Alita, the same name that we heard in the lab. In the note it says that she betrayed Purple Shirt and he's been hiding down here from them forever. He also seems to be the person that left behind the Eevee and the Curlia that we saw in the cave earlier, as he couldn't reach them anymore because he was stuck here. Eventually he was able to make a fishing rod, capture some Magikarp somewhere, but he got food poisoning from one of them and passed away. So we check out a nearby chest which is full of his items that he's left behind. Some craft wood, a star piece, a fluffy tail, as well as running shoes. So now we can play Sonic the Hedgehog and zoom through this island. We found another way out of that cave we just came from, which led up to a Hoppip who needed some help. We decided to give it some rope, and as a reward we can come come back every so often to get some free items. There's also a dodo here who loves berries, and if you give him a kelpie berry, which are the only ones he can find in the wild, he'll give you a berry out of a pool of random ones, so lum, oran, cherry, it could be anything, which will definitely be a nice way to stack up on some healing items. We found another Psyduck who is looking for someone too, so we told him about the other Psyduck at the house, and he ran over there at 6.9 max speed, breaking the sound barrier. There's also a Pidgeot flight service here that will take you around the entire island. Sadly enough, no actual fly HM, you always have to come back to these places where the Pidgeot are, and then you can maneuver around way easier. On the beach we found a Munchlax that was blocking the way, so we gave him a snack, and instead of taking it with gratitude, he attacked me. I'm never giving food out to anyone anymore. On the other side of the bridge there were some Poliwhirls and Poliwrath that were fighting. There wasn't really anything we could do to help, so we left them alone and entered the berry forest. And once we follow that, we got led to Azumarill Village, with a Surskit here that just doesn't want to go away. What did it do wrong? I don't know, but he's so cute he can definitely stay at my place if the Marill and Azumarill decide to bully him out of here. There's also a sign here that says that I could get free Master Balls at Vulpine Island, so I'm going to head over there as fast as possible. A Lapras then took me to a nearby island where we found another human, is what I thought, but after talking to it, it says that its eyes don't look human at all, which might indicate that it's actually a Ditto. Behold, the Lapras King. The Lapras King sent me into the Lost Cave, and in the Lost Cave I find a weird triangle that teleported me away to a place where it's very cold and actually snowing. And the tides here are so wild that I can't even surf, and this Poliwrath has to bring me to the other side of the island. On this other side of the island, however, there is an even worse thing. The Exploding Fields, and it's called this because it's filled with electrodes, fortresses, golems, and just every single Pokemon you could think of that can learn Explosion. And if you take too many steps there, you will run into a Pokemon that explodes and your Pokemon will take damage. So you should definitely get out of here as fast as possible. So I traveled back to the Lost Cave and found another triangle that teleported me to a tree with a Shelder next to it. And the Shelder is staring intensely at the other Pokemon from behind this tree. So what you're seeing is this Shelder is just a stalker. We go on over to investigate and found an actual real person here. He talks, isn't a Ditto, isn't dead, so I was super happy to see this guy. He says that he comes here sometimes to train up his Pokemon at the Sevi Islands, so we go on to explain our story about how we've stranded here because of Team Rocket, and he's willing to take me back to his hometown to see if we manage to get back to Pallet from there. But first, we have to defeat him in a Pokemon battle, otherwise he's leaving me here. So let's battle like our life depends on it. Obviously Eevee isn't going to be starring in this battle because Whammy is a bit too overpowered, scalding his Glaceon and Kangaskhan without much effort, which gives me the win and also the opportunity to finally get freedom. So Shice takes me back to his local town and introduces me to his friend Faiza. She knows a way of getting me back to Pallet Town and is going to talk to the police about it. But before we follow her into the police office, we check out some of the nearby buildings and find a PewDiePie clone, and that's about it. So we head to the police office where Faiza is already talking for me, but the police don't seem to want to do anything with the Sevi Islands. They say that only the champion is allowed to go to the Sevi Islands because of what happened there with Team Rocket so many years ago. Nobody's allowed to go there, nobody needs to know of the Sevi Islands, so instead of actually rescuing me or letting me stay in this town, the police suggests that they send me back, so that all of these rumors don't get out. They will obviously contact the champion to let her know that we are stuck there, and then she can come and rescue me, but the police themselves are not going to do anything. So as a parting gift, Faiza gives me some potions and escape ropes, but also a shard that I need to put in some kind of statue in order to summon Jirachi, who can then fulfill my wish. But who knows what I'm going to wish for? Money to get back to Pallet Town? Or maybe I'll just wish for an entire Mudkip army. We'll just have to wait and see. So we say our goodbyes and they drop us off again at the Sandy Isle. Here we find a Clamperl that's doing some illegal stuff, and after surfing a bit we get led to the Connection Cave, which basically connects the entire island, or at least most pieces. You can get to at least 6 or 7 different locations from this cave, but it's filled with Wynots and Wobbuffets that will make your life miserable by spamming Mirror Coat, Counter, and Destiny Bond. and because of their shadow tag, you can escape, so only enter this cave if you're prepared. My first exit out of this cave led me to Pikachu Valley, and you guessed it, it's filled with Pikachu, as well as a Mimikyu that has been bullied by the Pikachu. They even stole his cloth and threw it somewhere in the connection cave. We're definitely going to look for that later because we want to help out this little guy. After solving a little riddle, one of the Pikachus decides to give me a ton of berries. Besides that, there really wasn't all that much to do here. Keep on finding our way through the islands and eventually get to Flower Meadow, where we gossip with the Duck Trio. This guy would love Twitter, where you should follow me on, by the way, if you haven't done it already. You can also let him scour the island for items, which is quite nice, definitely for finding hard scales. Our next encounter was with a war turtle who's in need of dating advice, and he came to the wrong person, but we're going to give him advice anyway. He's trying to date an Azumarill, so we're going to push him into doing it, telling him which berry he should give her, what place he should take her, but not only that, but also which flowers to give her. And once we are done giving all of that advice, we only get a sour Spear berry as our reward, but we also follow him up to the mountain where he's taking this Azumarill, and our advice seems to have worked because they're standing here on the top of this mountain as a couple, staring out at the beautiful night sky. So if you ever need some dating advice, don't come to me. He once again rewards me with some items as a thank you, with some craft woods, red apples, seaweed, pesha berries, some pretty useless stuff. But at that moment, I decide to give them some quality time and dig my way down the mountain. Eventually, we end up at another mountain plateau where a 6th Swablu has been stranded just like us. And the only way we're going to make this guy better is by giving him a head pat. Once he's better, he returns back to his home as well as a Chansey that was taking care of it, and then we descend the mountain and end up in Vulpine Island, the place where they were giving out Master Balls. So here we find a girl, an actual girl or a fake girl, because she seems to be talking very weirdly and tells me to follow her. But as we're walking behind her, we notice that a tail is attached to her. Does this mean she's actually not a human? And our suspicions were right. It's actually a Ninetales, and she does give me 5 Master Balls, but in return, she wants to feed on the soul of one of my Pokemon. Seems like a great trade. So I offer my Eevee to her, not that I really had a choice or anything, but she takes it away and then flees the scene. So now I'm down to only one more team member. I check my bag for the Master Balls, but they have been turned into Heartstones. It was all an illusion, she turning into the girl, giving me Master Balls, none of it was real. The only thing she really did was steal my Eevee. Dusclops is about to help me out though, because he needs to keep these Ninetales in check. Because of their illusions, they sometimes manage to even trick him. We tell him that we've lost our Pokemon soul, and he takes me to a different realm to restore it. This is basically just a teeny tiny maze, and once you complete it, you will get your Pokemon back as well as a little memento, which is a shadow mail. But I'm pretty sure I just got scammed because my Eevee is gone and I never saw it again in this entire playthrough. But let's cheer up a bit because we are about to save this little Lapras that got lost at sea by bringing it back to its mother. That is, if we manage to find her. But we get sidetracked by the Kangaskhan fields. Over here we see a Chansey that has had its eggs stolen, which means it can't heal or help any more Pokemon. It got stolen by the Firo gang, which also resides somewhere near this island. But first, I went to harass the Kangaskhan by poking their baby, and that's when they ganged up on me and pummeled all my Pokemon. No matter how many Kangaskhan you defeat, they will always come back stronger and with more of them. So don't bother even bullying these kangaroos. I went back to the laboratory because the Psyduck is now gone, which gave me access to the house. Inside the house there was a paper with a ton of passwords on it. So I went back to the laboratory, gave one of these passwords into a computer, and this gave me a corrupted Pokemon, which turned out to be a Venusaur that's from a different trainer that left it here. So we're back at 2 team members, and a Venusaur is way better than an Eevee, so I'm not complaining. Since we're basically back at the beginning where we started, I also decided to go back to the Haunter that we saw and give him that Lepe Berry he so desired, which spawned a set of stairs that we can follow to a new route that we just unlocked. But this hunter also has a very sad story. His dad, Gengar, got killed by a Nidorino, the same Nidorino that helped us by digging that cave. So he asks me for our help to take down the Nidorino to avenge his dad. He goes on ahead and we follow shortly after. They're already squabbling together and Hunter tells me to attack this little guy, but the Nidorino said that it was an accident and it was only self-defense. The Gengar attacked him first, and he also reminded me that he dug this cave for me once we gave him that Lepa berry. I'm still going to stand by Hunter's side because even if you're getting attacked by a Gengar, that does not give you any right to kill him. So we beat up the Nidorino. Obviously don't kill him, but this makes Hunter very happy, so now he can go back home and live in peace. On that route that we just unlocked, we find an actual guy that just says Otohime, which means he must be the father of that girl on the ocean floor. But he's been mourning for so long that the only thing he wants is to take me out. And because he has a Venusaur, Dragonite, Charizard, and way more, he is able to do so. So until we get some more team members, I'm going to leave that guy alone. The Hunter and Nidorino incident made another of a teeny tiny cave open where another one of those teleport paths was. This one teleports me through the mountain pace, and there's a little pond of water here with a Psyduck shaped hole in it. And once you dive down there, you'll end up in Psyduck Village, which is being guarded by 2 Golducks, but once you solve all of their questions, they will let you in freely. In Psyduck Village, there's a couple of things you can do, like trading with other Psyducks and a Scrafty that will craft things for you, but also a nice mini game that I honestly didn't touch too much. Once we were done browsing all of the items, we went back upstairs and reached a Ludicolo who was reminiscing on the old days. He used to watch races between a Golduck, Poliwrath, and Marill, but that was 20 years ago. These races were the most exciting thing in his life back then, and he just wants to meet these 3 people again and talk to them to know what happened to them all. So we offered to go out there and search for them in order to get all of their stories straight and come back here to tell them to Ludicolo. He obviously accepts and is going to reward me handsomely if we manage to complete this quest. I head into the cave that Ludicolo was standing next to, and inside I find a thick club. But the weird thing is, it went to my key items, so we're probably going to need this for something. I also find a girl standing in this cave, but she seems to be frozen, and the only way that we're going to be able to unfreeze her is with a combination of chemicals that we have to find. Inside of the cemetery, we see 3 Pokemon that have died, probably from the guy that just beat us up a couple of minutes ago. So we let them rest in peace, and just as we're about to leave the cemetery, we run into an Absol, which we can't escape from, and it seems like it's warning me for a very strong Pokemon that's going to come our way. So now we're on our tippy toes, waiting for this strong Pokemon to arrive, and as it turns out, it was a Rattata. I am now mortified and haven't slept in days. This new route led us to a weird fossil, and if one of our Pokemon touches it, it spawns a Hermes flower. And then we hear a voice in our head to take this flower up to the temple. We have no idea where this temple is, so I guess we're also going to have to search for that. Then I run into one of the 3 swimmers that Ludicolo is looking for, the Golduck. He doesn't have time to practice competitive swimming anymore because he has an entire island and family to take care of. But he did love swimming back in the day, and thanks me for making him think of it again. He gives me a sea instance as a memento and hopes to one day race against one of my Pokemon. A great story to tell Ludicolo, but first we're going to put that shard we got earlier into this statue to hopefully spawn Jirachi. Wait. That's not a Jirachi. It's a person, and this guy says that so many years ago, he and his buddy came here to find Jirachi and make it grant their wishes. But once they spawned in Jirachi, his friend stole it and locked him up in this thing. So Jirachi is sadly enough no longer here, which means no wishes for us, and this guy is also going to leave to take revenge on his friend. And instead of taking me with him, he runs off into a rage and leaves me behind in the dust. Another escape method that leads us to nothing. In another cave, that's right, there's I think a million caves on this island, we find a little girl that keeps on muttering the name Hypno, meaning that she's probably under a Hypno's control, but it's nowhere to be seen, so we can't do anything to help her. And if you think we've seen all the caves already, get ready for another one. Only in this one we see a Machop standing by a campfire. He just sent a letter via the Pidgey service to his friend Machoke, telling him that he should come and train here together with Machop because training in the cold, harsh tundra is way better for your physique, but he doesn't trust the Pidgey service to fly through this bad weather, so we have to go and check on it for him. And he was right, the Pidgey hasn't even left yet, it's still outside, and as we try to shoo it into the right direction, it flies into the total opposite direction because Pidgeys are stupid. So we follow it, and as it turns out, there was a Sneasel here waiting for it, and it ate it already. So we go on to attack the Sneasel, knock it out, and retrieve the letter from it. We go back to Machop to tell it what has happened, and he seems to be very disappointed because he's never going to use the Pidgey service ever again. Instead, he asks me to deliver the letter and even gives me some small rewards for doing so. So we go to the canyon where his friend Machoke is and tell him about Machop's training place. He's super excited and leaves for his friend immediately, giving me a bright powder as a reward, and bada bing bada boom, we have completed another quest. Eventually we reach Murkrow Island. And this is basically the mafia of the Sevii Islands. You can hire these guys to either take out Pokemon or deliver packages to them, and they need a new team member and recruit me as one, and since I don't really want to hurt anybody, I decide to take a delivery job. We have to go and deliver a package to the Ditto that we saw earlier that turned into a woman. On our way over there, we bring back the baby Lapras to her mother. Obviously, the mother is super thankful for this, but she doesn't have any rewards for me. But she tells me if I do want a reward, I have to go to the Lapras King, who will then reward me for my good deeds in the Lapras community. So that's what we do. We go and tell the Lapras King, but he doesn't want to talk to us, so we have to go and talk to his secretary, who explains to me that the Lapras King never communicates with anybody except for her, but that he obviously appreciates the help that we just gave his family, and as a reward they give me a Mystic Water. And if you thought a Lapras King was weird, wait till you see the Dragonair that captured the most powerful Pokemon in existence and decided to be its Pokemon trainer. Yeah, this is absolutely nuts. You can fight this Dragonair in multiple challenges against its Mewtwo. They will set up rain, they will burn your Pokemon and paralyze you to make the battle harder. But every time you win, they will give you loads and loads of resources that are totally worth it. You can then trade in some of these resources with the Farfetch'd next to her to get craft wood. Honestly, I'm just super baffled at the amount of crazy and funny stuff that this game has introduced so far. This has to take the cake, right? They can't go any further than this. Well, what about a plot that the Murkrow are trying to kill the Lapras King, and this Shellder is trying to defend it? This is just super funny because the Lapras King will destroy all of the Murkrows if they even try to attack it. We finally go and deliver that package to Ditto. As a reward, we get a Silk Scarf. We then go and report back to the Murkrow, who give me a Murkrow slip, which I can trade in for valuable items. A very cool system, and if you need some money, you can definitely do this and go to the Psyduck village to sell all of them. That thick glove we found earlier in the cave belongs to this Cubone's mother. It's super sad that it's passed away just like every Cubone on Earth, but it's going to hold on to it tight, and it even gives me a Mystic Water as a reward for bringing back his memories. We go and give a star piece to a Clefairy who then wants to join my team, but this Clefairy isn't just a regular team member, it knows Teleport, Flash, and Soft Boiled, meaning that I can light up rooms, come back to the last Chansey I used anytime I want, and heal my Pokemon on the go, so more like a utility team member than an actual powerhouse. I play some sort of card game with a Machop that honestly doesn't really make any sense. It's just you press something, and if you get lucky you win, and if you get unlucky you lose. And if you win, he will make you a nice campfire. We found the second swimmer that Ludicolo was looking for as a Marill, so it's not a Marill anymore, it decided to evolve, and because of its evolution, it's not able to swim as fast anymore, it's lost sharpness, and wouldn't even be able to keep up with the other two contestants. But once again, it's super happy to think about these old times and gives me a fresh water as a token of its appreciation. We then go ahead and save another Azumarill who was getting harassed by a Seviper. As a reward for saving its life, it now makes free seeds for me, any color I need. I just need to give it some berries and it will turn those berries into seeds which I can plant to get more berries, if that makes sense. Corsola needed some help with defeating Tentacruels that were invading her home, so we squashed all those jellyfish and claim yet another reward. Shortly after, we find a Fearow nest inside of a cave, and there is also a Pokeball here. After checking what's in it, it appears to be a Charizard, and it wants to join my team. But the Fearow isn't too happy that I take this Charizard with me and decides to try and peck my eyes out. Charizard comes out of his Pokeball just at the right time and burns the Fearow to a crisp, giving me a nice chicken for dinner. I talk to another black prison that teleports me away, this time into an alternate dimension where I have to face my shadow self. I even swap gender. I don't really know what this is, and even after defeating it, nothing gets really clearer, but I'm just going to guess that this is some kind of Persona reference. Oh yeah, I also made my very first pickaxe, finally, after like 4 hours of playing. This allows me to deplete ores in caves, getting heartstones and metal coats and other very useful items. With all of the ores I'm getting right now, I can get the rest of my items as well, so hammers, shears, axes, anything I want except for a pot. We'll get to how to get a pot later. My Charizard ate a Miltank somewhere random, and that gave me 5 meat. But my Charizard wasn't done making a ruckus, because it also started attacking the Fearow King. You know, the one that stole that egg from Chansey a little while ago? Yup, Charizard turns out to be its archenemy. So after beating it up, the Fearows flee, we get to get Chansey's egg back, which means it can go back to healing everybody up. I then finally found the temple where we can lose our Hermes flower. Don't take that the wrong way. Here there is a statue of Hoopa, and you can give your Hermes flower to it and it will teleport you to one of 4 locations. The first one I took was Earth 121869, which is a small town in a different dimension. Upon getting there, I found out that the people here are kinda crazy, as this Nurse Joy hasn't healed anybody's Pokemon in over 10 years. This guy was watching VTubers, and this girl was singing a song about that time is an illusion and that we all are going to die. What a beautiful little town to be in. I definitely don't want to leave right away now. We also found our hunter friend here that doesn't even know how he ended up here, but it also seems like the people are stuck in this town because the exits are totally glitched out. This makes me think that this could be the puppet world of Sabrina, which means we need Hoopa to teleport us back as fast as possible. But we do find our next team member before we leave, and that's an Ampharos. It was super sad in this world and eventually decided to hug me, and it even told me that it wanted to come with me because it was just so sick of living in this horrible dimension. Hoopa then teleports us back to the real world, but I decide to give my Hermes flower to him again because I want to check out the other worlds too. This next one is supposed to take me to a Pokemon orphanage, but it looks nothing like it. The only thing you basically do here is fight a trainer battle with a random Larvitar, and once you lose, you get thrown back to your reality. And the last one takes me to an unfinished battle tower, but we do get a nice item here that serves as the PC box. But there's no Pokeballs in the game, so I highly doubt we'll ever get more than 6 Pokemon. It's time for some building. By giving him a choke 8 fences, he'd build me a ranch, which you can use as a daycare center. Only the Pokemon won't produce eggs, they will just level up. I then made my very own base camp, which I can use to sleep and replenish energy, and I made an item storage box, which is kind of useless since my bag is basically unlimited already. As it turns out, you can also hunt Pokemon in this game with a bow and arrow, and if you manage to hit them by picking the right power and speed, they will give you some meat. I finally found out how to make clay pots. First, you have to dig the floor with your shovel to get some dirt. After you get 3 dirt, you can make a pot. With this pot, you can go to a nearby campfire to make your very own soups. These soups will work like potions, full restores, max potions, hyper potions, all of them. But there's also another Pokemon that loves this curry, a random Kabuto. He wanted to eat something that's not from the wild, and since we made this ourselves, he's going to taste it. After its taste buds get blessed by the best soup ever, he decides to teleport me to the dotted hole. After completing the puzzle there, we find the Reaper Cloth, which we have to go and give back to Mimikyu. Shortly after, I completed the dotted hole puzzle, and there was another teleporting tab there, which brought me to another dimension, where me and some random people on a beach are happily cooking and eating together. I just wish that all of these people were here with me today. Sadly enough, they aren't, because we're obviously stranded all alone. Kabuto takes me back to my own reality. We go and give Mimikyu its cloth back, and as a reward, it will steal berries from the Pikachu that bullied him and give them to us. The last quest we're going to complete is talking to Polyrath, who will in turn tell me a story about his father, who was the third swimmer that Ludicolo was looking for. His father was the fastest swimmer on Earth back in the day because of his big muscles, but these days he's traveling the world, helping out people, and doing races in different places. So with that last story under my belt, I get my very last souvenir, head over to Ludicolo, and tell him everything. He gets a smile on his face and starts reminiscing again about the old days. And as a reward, he gives me the Ludi Crown, which you can use to heal up your Pokemon at any time, but beware because the more you use it, the less effective it will be. There's only one more thing I want to do before we get to the main story. That is defeat that old mysterious guy with the insane team. He starts out with a Venusaur, which I decide to Scorch with Charizard. But then Blastoise comes in, and this is when it gets really easy for me. I go for Sleep Powder with Venusaur, set up 6 growths, and take it down with Petal Blizzard, just like the next 4 Pokemon, Charizard, Eevee, Dragonite, and lastly, Clefable. And if you pay close attention, he almost has the same team as me if Eevee was still by my side. The only real difference is that I have an Ampharos and he has a Dragonite. And even after the battle, this still remains a mystery because the man just disappears into nothingness. So we head back to the temple and talk to the Dialga statue there and give him one of my flowers. He decides to teleport me to this place, but 5 years in the past, teleporting me to the place where now the laboratory is. Here we see the evil team, Purple Shirt, having a meeting together. I've just gotten a beat down by Lance and have fled over here. We also find out who Alicia is now. She's the girl that looks like May, and she's also the Hoenn champion, so why is she helping out this bunch of criminals? I also just found out that this is the perfect place to put an HQ because nobody lives here, there is no human contact, no GPS signal, nothing. They then split out into 3 groups. One group will look if there is any human activity nearby, one group will look for test subjects as well as ingredients to make potions, and the third one will make sure that all of their other grunts are still alive on the mainland. But then they spot me spying on them, so they split up into their groups and they leave 2 people behind to deal with me, Fikas and Entaro, and they don't hold back. They attack me immediately with their Shedinja and Empoleon, but with Draco and Whammy, we can easily take both of them down without even taking a single casualty on my side. After the battle, they ask if I'm one of Lance's spies, but we go on to explain everything that has happened, that we're a time traveler and that we're here from the future. At first, they don't really believe me, but then they start to notice that I'm wearing one of the guys' running shoes, the ones that we found in the crate in the cave at the beginning of our adventure. And they also see that the Venusaur that we have is also one of their team members' Venusaurs. And that's when they finally believe me. I think going to explain that there is an imposter among them that will make sure that their entire organization will collapse in the future. They immediately jump on Alicia because she's the newest member and has been missing from a lot of their fights. And she's also the Hoenn champion, so it really doesn't make all that sense for her to hang out with an evil team. So we go over to her and ask her some questions about what she's doing, but she's on the phone giving the exact location of the team to the police. So she's just been caught in the act. She tries to play it off by saying that she was talking with a grunt back on the mainland and giving them their coordinates. But we know she's lying. And after confronting her with the truth, she reveals that she's a double agent because Team Purple Shirt needs to be shut down. We can then either choose to side with Team Purple Shirt or with Alicia. And since I kind of want to know what's going on with the laboratory and all of that stuff, to go with the bad guys. For some reason, Purple Shirt doesn't trust me enough. They actually don't seem to want me to join their side, and that's when Alicia swoops in, sprays me with something, and I go unconscious. Sometime later, we wake back up in an office. Another guy starts talking to us. He's glad we're finally awake, and his name seems to be Brendan. He is one of the many subordinates of Alicia, and it's because of him that we're still alive, because Alicia wanted to take me out as we're a witness to everything that happened there. But Brendan changed her mind, as he's actually a time traveler himself. He always goes back into the same 7-year loop. It doesn't matter what he does in these 7 years, he always ends up at the same point in time in the end. And since we're a fellow time traveler, we might be able to break this cycle. Then hear a voice in our head saying that it's time to go back to our own timeline, and as a parting gift, Brendan gives me the Purple Shirt CD and hopes to meet me in a different timeline one day. I go into the timeline and pop this CD into one of the computers, which generates a QR code, and I dare you to scan it, because I'm keeping it a mystery, not telling you what it's leading to. I deliver another flower to Dialga straight after, and he teleports me even further into the past. Here we get greeted by a Gengar that seems to need our help. As it turns out, this is also the Gengar that got killed by the Nidorino in my time, because we also see our friend Haunter here, but he obviously doesn't recognize us yet. A little further up, we see an injured man laying down. Gengar wants me to help him get back up on his feet, but it seems like he's going to die any minute, so there's not much I can do. In his last breath, he tells me to take care of his daughter Arane, the girl standing right there. She's frozen in time, and he wants me to try and return her back to normal, so we're obviously going to try our best to do so. His last words, he decides to give me a box with all of his last belongings in it, and after that he sadly enough passes away and we get sent back to our own time. Now, normally you have to go to Arane to wake her up and unfreeze her. My game was glitched out and I couldn't do it, so I decided to use a different save file to try again. This time it worked. I woke up Arane from her decade-old sleep and wakes up screaming. She goes on to explain that the last thing she saw was a green light, and then everything after that is blank. She used to live in a different region with her family, her mother, her father, and her siblings, but they are all gone. So she tells me that she's going to find her family no matter what, but first she wants to know what year we're in by doing a ton of sightseeing on these remote islands. We're going to go with her because it must be scary doing all of that alone. So we build up a camp together and tell a couple of stories about how her favorite Pokemon is Charizard, how she remembers her first birthday being super fun, but as it turns out, she also found a Pokeball and a potion in her inventory which must have been frozen with her. Then go and check out Pikachu Valley together to solve some riddles. We go to the river bank where she can capture her very first Pokemon Jigglypuff with the only Pokeball she's gotten, and then heads to the canyon to train up her new Pokemon. She uses Sing to put all of the wild Pokemon to sleep and beats them up. She doesn't even need my help. Then go and explore the nearby cave where that one girl was being possessed by a Hypno, but only this time the Hypno is actually here. So we confront it, but it's not too happy with our presence here and decides to teleport us away to the temple, where we see the Palkia statue in all of its glory. As it turns out, Arane had a Palkia statue just like this one in her hometown, so she actually starts believing that this could be her hometown from all those years ago, but then shrugs off the idea and wants to go back to the canyon. But then a Slowbro comes walking up to us and tells us to not go back to the canyon because the woman is after us and could be here in the next half an hour. He also goes on to explain that Purple Shirt used to do experiments on Pokemon, killing a lot of them in the process, and Alicia obviously helped them with that before she turned them into the police. Now, all the members of Purple Shirt have been locked up and Alicia is the hero, but she actually covered everything about the Pokemon experiments up so the entire world doesn't know about it. Now, as it turns out, all of the documents that we have found have been teleported there by a Gardevoir. It used to live in that one cave where we found the Curlia and wanted to warn me about Alicia and all of her evil deeds, so that we could finally unmask to the world what she did to all of those Pokemon all those years ago. But Alicia actually caught Gardevoir in the act, teleporting the documents from the office to the laboratory, and right there in that moment, she killed her. Slowbro bursts out in tears and says that Alicia is obviously a psychopath and she's now after me. So Slowbro tells us to run away to somewhere, but Alicia shows up and intervenes with our conversation. Luckily, Arane is smart. She walks up to her, throws out her Jigglypuff, and tells her to use Sing. Me and Slowbro cover our ears while Alicia falls asleep. Luckily, the Slowbro has a Hermes flower with him, so it gives it to the Palkia statue, and me and Arane get teleported to the exploding fields. Alicia has already woken up and followed us with her Flygon. Then she sprayed us down with something that made us go unconscious, and after that she took us to her hideout. Here she tells the guards to lock Arane up while she interrogates me because she thinks we've been working together with that Gardevoir Slowbro mentioned. We say that it's all a misunderstanding because we have never even seen this Gardevoir, but she obviously doesn't believe me. She then goes on to say that she will eliminate me in a bit here because she can't let her secret go out to the world. That's when one of the guards shows up and says that Arane has escaped. So Alicia goes out to try and search for her, but that's when the guard comes up to us and says that she's actually Arane in a disguise. She managed to overtake the guard and steal her outfit, which was an amazing idea. Because of this disguise, she can walk around the base unnoticed, and she tells me to stay close by her so that we can hopefully find a way to escape together. Arane gets invited by one of her co-workers to go and grab a snack in the cafeteria. She says yes, and we have to follow her close by, but we get noticed pretty quickly. But the members of this organization are pretty dumb because Arane manages to trick all of the guards into thinking one of their own is an imposter instead of me and her. They bring the so-called imposter away, but there is another problem we run into. They stole my bag and Pokemon and probably stored them somewhere in this base. So me and Arane go look for them, but eventually I hear Alicia's voice coming from the speakers, saying that me and Arane have escaped, which means the entire base is on high alert now. I try to sneak past all of the guards, but we quickly get spotted and they then put us in a jail cell. That's when Alicia shows up and she says that she has finally got me where she wants me to be. She's so mad that she's on the verge of exploding, which would be very convenient to us. But as it turns out, this day can get even worse because Arane is still out there. And not only that, on one of their other bases, the Curlia that she abducted from the cave that we were in at the beginning, rampaging because she took one of the medicines that Alicia used to test on all of those Pokemon. This made her super strong and nobody is able to stop her. So she tells the guards that she's going to go over there and calm her down, while she also gives an order to throw me into the Mega Salamence cage so that it can devour me. So just as they're about to take me to my last meal, or should they say Salamance's last meal, Arane shows up and tries to seduce the guard by saying that she will bring me to the Mega Salamence. Just as she's about to take me out, a commander of this base comes along, and he knows that this is Arane. He knows that this is not one of his employees. So he shouts at the other guard to take me away to the Salamence while he deals with Arane. He goes on to say that it's all her fault that we weren't able to escape. Obviously that's not true, but she does break down right there and then and shouts that she will go and save me, and just when she's about to run after me, Brendan shows up. He's actually not trying to stop Arane, he's here to help her. He gives Arane her Pokemon back and tells her to come and save me. So the commander asks Brendan why he's doing all of this, and Brendan answers with, I have seen this scenario hundreds of times, and this is the only way that Zwigo will be able to save us all. Sadly enough, he won't be around to see it, and neither will we, because this is where the game ends at this point. There is nothing further, but I'm guessing in the end we will beat Alicia, go back to Pallet Town, out her for everything that she's done so that we can return home as a hero. Considering this game got taken off of Pokemon Community, I don't know if it will ever get finished, but I had a ton of fun with Pokemon Stranded. Don't get me wrong, there's not a lot of battling going on, and that's what makes it so refreshing. There's a ton of side quests you can do, help out a ton of Pokemon, and honestly, if you're looking for something new and different, this is it. Yes, it could get polished so much more. There's a couple of glitches here and there that ruin your experience a little bit, but that doesn't take away from this game being a ton of fun to play. So with all of that out of the way, I want to thank my membership and Patreon supporters for supporting the channel. If you want to do so yourself, you can click the links in the description. It is always appreciated but not needed. And as always, people, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. I'm Zwigo, and I'll see you all next time.